we're going to do a little centering here. So if you would like to, wherever you are in your space, let's just go ahead and take a moment to land together here now. And if it feels good to close your eyes, you can close your eyes, or at least soften your gaze from the screen. So maybe it's already been a busy Monday for you. Let's just take this sacred pause here together with 3 deep breaths. Deep breath in through the nose. And a big exhale, just let it sigh out of your mouth and allow your body to land where you are here now. And again, another breath will flow in to fill up your container. And this time as you exhale, just notice how the body responds to this exhale. And then another breath will flow in gently. And your next exhale, just let it be a breeze of a sigh to be here. Fully present, crossing the threshold into the space that we will share together. And before we come in and listen and receive and connect more deeply, let's just take 2 more breaths to connect more deeply to yourself. So notice sensations in the bodies, any feelings or thoughts, just welcome them. Know that they all belong. And I'll just invite you to call in. Maybe there's an intention or a word that called you into this space of reimagining embodied leadership. Invite you to bring that intention or word or image into your space here now for a few more breaths. Letting this be the seed for your journey, your individual journey of stepping into this role of leader, and also bringing it in as seeds collectively as we share and connect more deeply for the next 7 to 10 days. And know that the conversations that you'll hear and reflect upon, and the new knowledge and wisdom that you will receive, will be the water, will be the sunshine that will nourish this seed within you. Deep breath, let that even be the nourishment, just the deep breath to breathe life into it. Deep exhales. And then you can anchor yourself in your body. If that feels good, to give yourself a little squeeze, little hugs of the legs, whatever feels good to anchor you back here physically in your body, in your breath, in your space. Landing here now. Welcome, welcome, my dear friends. So it is a joy to be with you. Again, my name's Phoebe Leona. I will be your main guide along this journey for the next 7-10 days. Right? We have the last 3 days as a replay. And we have our friends out in YouTube watching us streaming, and I see some comments there. We have a more intimate group in our backstage, what I'll call the VIP lounge. And I just love to take a moment because I have 2 embodied leaders. I'm looking at them to the right and to the left of me as I'm looking at my view of Zoom. So I'd love to just take a moment to recognize and acknowledge and bring them on stage for a moment, and before we talk about where we're going today. So welcome, Stephanie, if you don't mind just coming in and saying hi, and any words that you'd like to share for us today.
Well, I'm just so thrilled to be here with all of you. And I just got back from leading a women's retreat in Tulum. So this is all alive and ignited within me. So just thrilled and honored to be here with you all.
Oh my gosh, yes, I feel the Tulum energy. Yes, thank you so much. And Stephanie, we have you on, I think, day 3. So that'll be on Wednesday. We'll have your conversation on Wednesday. Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. And Leah, we've got to have you on here because you're not only an embodied leader, but you're also the person who does all of the things that make me kind of look good. Hi, Leah.
Hi, I don't know about all of that, but I'm so excited to be here. And I remember us kind of coming together with this seed of an idea and to finally be here on this day and seeing Stephanie in person, so to speak, on Zoom, and kind of seeing it all come together has been so beautiful. And yeah, I'm so excited. We're here, we're doing it, we're doing the thing.
We're doing it. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse of backstage. I mean, we had a little meeting before, and then we were setting up all the technical stuff of getting it to YouTube and make sure that we could screen share. And we just kept texting each other back and forth, like, we're really doing this. Oh my gosh. So it's really cool to have this all be here happening now. So I'm going to shift into more logistics. And then what I'm going to do is talk a little bit of logistics, make sure everybody feels good and safe in the space. And then I'm going to share a little bit about my own journey that brought us into this space of the summit and why, most importantly, why we're here today and what's to come. Yeah, what we can reimagine together. So hopefully that sounds good. I'm going to do a little screen share. Hopefully that works. One moment, please, as I find, okay. Oh, 1 second. All of the fun things of technology I can't see. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Awesome. All right. So yes, we're going to talk just quickly logistics so that everybody knows that they're in the right place, whether you're here in Zoom, whether you're on our YouTube channel, whether you're watching the replay. Yeah, the portal is now open. So this morning, you probably got an email. I know if you're watching this right now, live, you did get that email. We confirm it. Yeah. So you have access to beautiful interviews today with spiritual teachers. Alexander John Shaya, in his cohort, we have Annie Sempal, who's one of our VIP speakers today. We have Angel Deere and Crystal Ann Compton. So you have access to those, and then the next couple of days you'll be receiving more and more and more. If you are in VIP, you will also have more access to getting to be in the backstage, where you'll get to have a little bit more interaction with us at the end of the session, on our other session on Thursday, where I'm going to actually lead a little bit of an experience. And you'll also have the invitation into a couple of extra bonus calls. Inside of the portal, you'll also have your gift giveaways. So some of the speakers have generously given their gifts to bring into the space to help you dive deeper into your own journey as an embodied leader, and to also get to know them and connect with them on a more intimate level. So I definitely encourage you, when you listen to these interviews and when you feel, you'll hear lots of conversations about feelings, sensations in the body. When you get that chill in your body, when you feel it in your heart or your gut or whatever it is that speaks to you, that you really resonate with the story, the lessons, the practices this embodied leader has, I say, reach out to them, connect with them, whether it's going to their following up on that freebie, following up with an email. They're all here. They all want to guide you. They are here to be of service to you. So take advantage of those giveaways. Also, one of my gifts to you all is booking a one-on-one envisioning call session. This is a 30-minute session where we're going to sit down. I'm going to listen deeply to what it is that you're envisioning for your life, for your world. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can really make that happen and come to fruition. And then the last piece that I would like to offer to you is that our next live session, as I mentioned before, is Thursday, April 27th at 12 p.m. So same time as today. So check out your calendars and your time zones. And I will be leading more of an experience of somatic work. And if you're new to this word somatic or embodiment, I will introduce you into that. We'll be able to have that experience and go deeply into recognizing how to be first embodied in your own body and how we can translate that into being an embodied leader. But today we're going to do more information, story time, and yeah, we're going to go for that. So those are the logistics. Do I see any questions or comments or answers? You can leave them in the chats and Leah and I will get to them towards the end. So I talked a little bit already about the VIP. Again, you'll get a Zoom room pass, you get bonus sessions and lifetime access. That's something I didn't mention, as lifetime access and the video content. So right now, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you have access to our interviews, but you're hearing them mostly podcast style, so you get to listen to them. But if you're somebody who likes to sit and watch and connect, making connections with the faces and the gestures and everything like this, right? You really want to be embodied in part of the conversation. I definitely suggest becoming a VIP so that you can watch those videos and have lifetime access to those. All right, so now it's my favorite time, story time. So I felt that it was relevant to share some aspects of my own story and why we are here today, and through the lens of me, because I was one of the people that created this. So let me just move my screen around a little bit so that it's doing a funny thing where I can't see. 1 second. I want to be able to see my faces here in the chat, but also see my screen. Okay. Okay. All right. It'll be what it is. So I want to share a couple of lessons from my own story that are also codes for your own story. Because what the main storyline, the main lesson that I have learned, especially when I was sitting with these 30 embodied leaders, is that everything is connected. So as I share my story, there might be elements in your story that you really resonate and connect. There might be some that you don't fully have that in your own journey, but there is still there's still a code there for you to receive. So everything is connected. And so I ask you, as you're listening here today to what I'm sharing, what you're going to start to hear from the other embodied leaders as you dive into the content, is what dots can you connect from your path, right? So we have a beautiful journal that you can download, or if you're just somebody who likes to write in your journal, I invite you to jot words down, write images down, write anything that comes through here today as I'm sharing, as you're listening to the embodied leaders throughout this time, and really listen to, okay, what are some of the dots that I haven't fully connected in my own life that I can now today? This is an invitation for you. So, one moment. It won't let me go to the next page. Here we go. All right, so my story, I'm going to break it down in a couple of different phases. One was I was primarily raised by my father, who was a Vietnam vet. And this was a very loving person, a loving man. I'm so grateful that I had the father that I had. I come from the belief that our soul has chosen our parents for living out the lessons that our soul was ready to do. And so my soul chose this beautiful person to be my father, as well as my mother, who I also love very dearly. But from the ages of 8 to 15, I lived with my father primarily. And as I said, he was a Vietnam vet. And so even just listening to that and seeing these words, you probably already know where this is going. My dad dealt with very severe PTSD. And we didn't have these terminology. We didn't have that terminology around at the time in the early 80s when I was growing up. What we did have was he would go to the VA and he would get labeled as shell shock, and he was prescribed drugs and was sent on his way. But they weren't good enough for him. He was having severe flashbacks, which we didn't know that was what was happening, but he would go into places where he thought that he was in literally fight mode, where he almost killed my mom in front of me. So we'd have lots of violence and rage. And he also self-prescribed using hard drugs. So at the time, I really labeled him as a drug addict, but I didn't realize that there was a reason, there was a root cause, was because of this PTS. Now, the reason I tell you that is because I had a gift, which was dance. So when I was witnessing these experiences of my father, I would go into my room, I would close the door, I would turn the music on, and I would dance. And I did this intuitively because I just wanted to get to a new vibration. I wanted to feel joy again. I wanted to be happy and be free like a little kid should feel. But so I picked up all of these energies of anger and rage and confusion and sadness and grief that I experienced being with my father. And I went in and I used movement, I used dance as my medicine to move those energies through me so that I could have this higher vibration. Now, I didn't really fully recognize this until many, many years later in my life when I started to connect my own dots, which I'll share a tiny bit more about in a little bit. The other thing was I was rather intuitive as a child and really empathetic. So I would feel these waves of shift of energy in my father before the bad stuff happened, which was really confusing because at some point I thought that I was the one creating the anger and the rage and the confusion. And so I wanted to I wanted to turn the intuition off, right? But I had these practices of meditation. So what I would do is I'd imagine there was a vacuum kind of sucking my thoughts out in the middle of the night if I couldn't sleep. I also had a lot of anxiety. So I had this breath work where I was taking deep breaths. My dad actually taught me breath work in a lot of ways of like how to take slow, deep, easy breaths when I was panicking. And then I also had this gift of writing. I just always opened up the journal and wrote into my journal whatever feelings and thoughts. I was able to lock it up. No one else could see it and see what I was thinking and feeling. And so these were gifts that I had throughout the rest of my life. I share a lot more about these in my book, Dear Radiant One. And I am just going to give a tiny little plug because my publisher, Michelle, who will be on in a couple of days, they're running a special at Grace Point for my book, Dear Radiant One, for $3.99 on Amazon and Kindle now. So just side note, if you're interested to dive in more into that story. But so I ask you here to look at your own dots and ask, what are some of the centering practices that maybe you didn't know that you had as a child? Because children are very intuitive, like we're very empathetic. And there might have been some practices that you were intuitively doing. Maybe it was dance, maybe it was drawing and painting, or maybe it was playing imagination and having imaginary friends, right? Those are even ways of making sense of the world and centering us in who we are and who we want to become. So that's a question for you to reflect upon as we continue on with this journey. What centering practices do you have as a child? And also here today, because what I have found is that, and this is a question I ask all of my embodied leaders, this is what you're going to definitely hear in all of the interviews, is how do they center themselves? Yeah, because this is one of the most important things to be as an embodied as a leader and just as a human being, right? Especially today, because we're all dealing with some sort of micro traumas on the day-to-day. So my teaching path is what I want to share a little bit more too. And this was a path that was very guided. I make a joke. You'll even hear Elizabeth, who is one of our embodied leaders on the last day. She was my very first yoga teacher. And I was kicking and screaming. I mean, not literally, but I was dragging my feet about becoming a yoga teacher because I just wanted it for me. Same thing for teaching dance at a very young age. My college professor called me in and said, "You're going down to teach at the School of Pennsylvania Ballet for the summer." And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know why you think that I'm the person that's in charge and has, the wisdom and the knowledge to share this, but somehow I did it. So I feel that this teaching path was truly guided. It was something that I did not call in. It was not something that I wanted to, quote unquote, wanted to do, but I am so grateful that I answered the call. I wouldn't have changed anything looking back at those dots and seeing all of those invitations that were made to me along the way, because they brought me to be who I am here now. And I've had such beautiful experiences. You're going to hear again from Leah, who you already heard from a little bit today, from Amy, from Cordelia, from Bill, who are some of my students that I'm so, so very proud of, that I got to be a part of their journey. So I'm so grateful for the guided. So I ask you, where have you been guided in your life? Maybe there was some resistance around it. Maybe there's a call right now that you haven't fully listened to. And so how are you guided? How have you been guided on your journey? During my teaching path as well, all of the work that I did was in the body. So I was teaching dance, I was teaching Pilates, I was teaching yoga. And what I saw very, very early on was that how you do anything is how you do everything. So how I was interacting in my body on my physical yoga mat was clear reflections of what was going on in my external world. And I didn't just notice that me as a practitioner, but also as a teacher was noticing when my clients would come in and they would have these aches and pains in their body, and the way they were talking about them, how they were in relationship with these illnesses and injuries and things that felt, uncomfortable or undesirable. They were really talking a lot about what was mirroring out in their external worlds, these relationships they were having. Because I joke, I know Stephanie's a therapist. I'm not technically a therapist, but I really feel like I am one, being a yoga teacher for 20 years, because you hear not just what's happening in their body, but what's happening in their life. You're going into their homes, you're seeing the family dynamics, you're seeing all of the backstage, like what's happening behind the closed doors of what normally they're not showing to the world. And so I really got to see what was happening within their body was happening in their lives. So our body and our external world are mirrors for each other. And so the deeper and deeper I went into this work of teaching and diving into my own somatic journey, which soma, for those of you who haven't connected with this word soma yet, soma, it means just simply body. And so somatic therapy or somatic practices are just truly recognizing being present in the body. And so as I dove deeper into this, I developed what we call Movement 109, which I'll talk a little bit more about on Thursday in our live session. And you'll actually have a little bit of an experience. And I will give a little shout out to Joey because you were with me yesterday. I see you in the VIP room. And so Joey, yeah, I know you got a little personal experience too. And Leah is also a Movement 109 facilitator, and some of our other embodied leaders are as well. But the question that I want to ask to you again is, how have you been guided? And then how are you in relationship with your body now? What are some things, and we'll just take a moment to pause for my story and just ask yourself, and if you want to even bring your hands onto your body in some way that feels good, and just ask yourself, what is my relationship with you? Right. Do we have these moments where we're looking at ourselves in the mirror and wishing it looked a different way? Or are there sensations in the bodies, like illnesses and injuries and other things that are coming up that we feel, uncomfortable with and we kind of ignore? It's okay to feel these things. And I just ask you, as you're listening now, a little bit more closely into this beautiful body of yours, this home of your soul. Is there a dot out in the external world that can relate to this relationship? Maybe it is a relationship with a person, or maybe it's just the way that you're in relationship with generally the world. Just let yourself sit with that for another breath or two. And so as I continue just sharing a little bit more, I just invite you to stay in that grounded space, stay in that connected space, and listen to what the body is asking for, right? It is what I like to call your life partner. You're gonna have it. Okay, so this is another moment where I can't see. Okay, here we go. So I felt that it was also relevant to share with you a little bit of my own journey as a leader, the leadership roles that I share. And again, some of the encoded stories that I will share from my own, and weave also through some of the embodied leaders that shared in our summit today. So the leadership role that I really most identify is a dancer and a choreographer. So a dancer, we have to be the leader of our own body, know how we're moving through space in a lot of ways, about being able to emote our emotions through our gestures, but also a choreographer, very, very much what you can probably already imagine is that we have to be the leader of this whole vision and take people somewhere where we want to go, somewhere that we see is possible that others might not see yet. And so it's our job as a choreographer and a leader to bring that vision into a space and bring it to a reality, right? We create the costumes where we don't physically create the costumes. We have the vision of the costumes. We have the vision of the movement, the dancers, their strengths, the ways that we can really amplify their strengths in a way, right? That they can look beautiful on stage and emit what we emote rather. I don't know where that word came from, emote what we want to create the most. So the choreographer, I think, is one of the leaders that the role of the choreographer is one of the leaders that I truly identify from a very young age. And there were some lessons that I learned along the way from my teachers, my leaders. And one was, it was going to be lonely. It was going to be lonely because when you see something that others don't see yet, it's your job to create that vision so that they can see it and they want to come along that journey with you. And Alexander John Shaya, who is one of the embodied leaders from today in today's portal, he talks a lot about this. His vision of what he saw through the lens of anthropology and Jungian psychology and Christianity, and how he saw something completely new, and how he felt quite alone on this journey for so many years. So he dives in more deeply into his own journey. But yes, I learned very much along the way that it was going to be lonely, taking other people along until I knew how to fully bring it into fruition and have them feel it and be it. The other thing that I learned was the contrast. I saw a lot. I love my teachers, my dance teachers, very, very dearly, but they were also archetypes of what not to become. They were so immersed in the arts that they weren't always fully formed as human beings because they're so spiritual and so connected to a different realm that they weren't fully developed and as thoughtful as you might want them to be about taking care of the psyche of very insecure dancers. And so we saw a lot of contrast. And Dante Paleo and actually Leah, we talk a little bit about this idea of the contrast of seeing these leaders that we don't want to become to embody more of what we want to become. Another lesson that I learned as a dancer and a choreographer was this tapestry, how everything is connected and interdependent of one another, right? As a dancer, I have to rely on the costume designer to put clothes on me, right? To create that beautiful outfit for me to move in. The choreographer to give the moves for me, right? To express on the stage, the lighting designer, right? All of the little people, not little people, but all the people backstage that are doing all of the things to make that one person on stage shine, right? So as a leader, right, we have this vision, this movement, but we can't get lost in our ego of I am the face, I am the superstar, I am the leader. Everybody is part of it, and they are just as important as maybe that person who is here front and center. Like I said before, Leah is the leader in a lot of ways. I'm just the face telling you some stories here. No, she's done a lot, and I honor her, and I also honor the journey that I bring into it too. So, but it's important that we recognize everybody that's playing a role in our journey. Some other roles that I played was a yoga director of a program in the Hudson Valley in New York, as well as the founder of the Nomad Collective, which is part of this umbrella of where we are all today. And that made me an entrepreneur, which I actually, again, kind of kicked and screamed about this role of being an entrepreneur. But I'm grateful that I did it. I'm grateful that I'm here. But I always joke about being an entrepreneur is a shamanic journey. This shamanic journey, you are going to see all of your shadows. When you step into this role of being a leader as a business owner, whether you're leading your own self, because I was a solopreneur for many years, or you're leading a team of 1 or 3 people or a whole organization, you are going to see your shadows. And they're going to be there if you like them or not. So it's best to just lean in and ask, what is it that you want to show me today? So for me, I realized that I had an interesting relationship with chaos, which actually was a strength as being an entrepreneur, because you have to lean into that uncertainty. You have to be able to go with the flow and see what wants to be born next. But there's also the flip side of that, of creating the anxiety on it, right? Creating the too much, doing the things that are unnecessary, just because you're so excited and amplified about all of the things that you have, and you want to do them at rapid speed. You have to be able to slow down and take those pauses and see what's actually possible for yourself and for your team. I also was able to look at my trust issues and my abandonment issues from my childhood, because it was really hard for me to lean in and trust my team at the beginning. I wanted to be sort of the control freak and make sure that everything was taken care of. And now today I'm just like, okay, Leah, these are the things that I need done. And I trust I'll see you next week. And, so I'll just give myself permission to receive that I have learned that lesson. I'm still learning that lesson. And yeah, it's been a beautiful journey leaning in. And I know along this shamanic entrepreneurial journey, there will be more shadows to lean into and learn from. And the last thing that I'll just speak into of my own journey is this. As I was teaching yoga teacher trainings, I was invited to work at West Point with the cadets first, where we brought the yoga teacher training program to the cadets at West Point. We've been doing this for 6 years now. Well, we started what you'll hear from Amy and Bill and Garrett, as we started a nonprofit called Tribe, where we bring the tools of yoga to the military. And I will say this has been one of the biggest experiences for me to learn from, was because I had this one idea of a population because of my father, that everybody who is in service is severely traumatized. Yeah. And so that was one misconception that I had. But the other one was that I didn't fully recognize, and maybe they didn't fully recognize. So I was here because I have a great bird's eye view of things. This is one of my strengths as a leader, is I can see things from a bird's eye view. That they had these practices of meditation, of visualizations already, of breath work, already instilled in their training to be service members. And so what we've been doing in our Tribe yoga teacher trainings is just connect the dots. These visualizations that we're doing for missions, right? We can also visualize having peace in our body in those moments where it's safe to be in our parasympathetic nervous system. Those moments that we're looking at the target, right? and visualizing on a one-pointed focus, we can also do that with mantra and anchor ourselves when we're feeling anxiety. We can have that one-pointed focus. Even cadence in the military, right, is a form of mantra. And so they have all of these beautiful practices already that are creating the soldier or creating the service member, that we're just allowing them to give permission to drop down and be the leader of their own life and their own sovereignty as a human. So those are some of the codes that came through in my story. And again, I just invite you to now turn inward and ask yourself, what are some of the lessons that you have learned as a leader? And again, if you're here and you are leading one person or many, you are a leader. You are leading your life. And something called you into this space to claim that. If you haven't claimed it yet, something has called you into this space to claim it for yourself. So again, just take a bit of time on this journey to ask, what are some of the lessons that you have learned as the leader of your own life? And that's the wrong direction. Here we go. So this brings us to our paradigm shifts. First of all, what is a paradigm shift? You're going to hear me talk a lot about it. You probably already heard me talking about it in the promotions. You're going to hear me ask a lot of questions from the embodied leaders about their own paradigm shift. And so I thought it would be important to bring in just what this definition of paradigm shift is. So it's an important change that happens when the usual way of thinking about or doing something is replaced by a new and different way. And, Stephanie's on here. She definitely she has a beautiful story, a very powerful story of her own paradigm shift when she was a teenager, when she was going through witnessing her parents going through their own divorce. I experienced my own paradigm shift in 2013. It keeps going the wrong way. In 2013, where after my dad went through a lot of rehabilitation, he was sober. He went through the VA. He got a lot of taken care of the last several years of his life. But in 2013, he did die in his sleep very peacefully. So we did have a bit of closure there in that relationship. But in 2013, after he passed away, I also went through a very sudden divorce, which was a marriage of 15 years. It was very sudden. I mean, in retrospect now, I see it was coming. But at that time, I felt like I was blindsided. So everything that I knew to be true was no longer true. And so what I saw in this paradigm shift of my own was an invitation to finally take matters in my life into my own hands. I had made so many decisions because of the relationship I had with my father. That codependency that I had with him spilled into this relationship with my ex-husband. And so I was making all of these choices, taking care of other people. And I have a feeling that most of you probably resonate with this, right? Taking care of others, putting ourselves first. And what this invitation was that I was an invitation to take care of myself, to lead my life in a way that I wanted to truly lead it. And that's where I found Nomad, was I started this company to lead others, because my mission really truly is in everything I do. And a lot of you will have had already experiences with me. Some will maybe explore more with me. There's a lot that I offer at the umbrella of Nomad, but the essence of it is that I hold transformational experiences for people to have a greater sense of belonging and purpose. Because I found that I was quite lost in that old world, and I didn't quite feel I belong. So I saw this as an invitation to create that space, not only for myself, but for others. Because if I felt that, I knew other people felt that too. And as I said, you're going to hear a lot of beautiful, very powerful stories from our embodied leaders this week that are going to share their own paradigm shift. And what I'm going to also offer to you, if you are thinking, well, what's my paradigm shift? started the pandemic. We all had a paradigm shift 3 years ago. Whether you fully realize that or not, and I have a feeling everybody who is here present already is very well aware of it. You answered this call into embodied leadership. Everything that we knew to be true prior to 3 years ago was no longer true. And so we started to make new choices. We started to see things through a whole new lens. And I think that right now we're also going through another wave of a paradigm shift, right? What we're seeing is that we can't go back to that old way. These old systems are now crumbling in so many different ways. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that through my lens in just a moment. But I just ask you here to pause and ask yourself again, what has been your paradigm shift? If it wasn't 3 years ago, maybe there was something before that. Because I think truly as embodied leaders, we need to have that. We need to have some moment in our time, and it doesn't have to be a big traumatic event, but something that shifted our lens to see something that others don't see yet, and to take them on that journey. So what was that for you? And how has it prepared you to be the leader that you want to become or embody even more of that? And I haven't been super interactive with the chats. I told Leah I get a little anxious when I see all the chats, but I do invite you, if at any point you want to share on YouTube or here in Zoom, if you want to share any of these reflections, please do so. We'll have a little bit of time to reflect and Q&A at the end, so I will acknowledge you. So if you do care to share what your paradigm shift was or how it prepared you or any of the other questions, please feel free. And I'll continue. So when I was sitting here, really sitting with, okay, why do I want to create this? I really felt, as I said, there's so much shifting right now. And it's a beautiful experience that we're having, but it's also a little scary because there's so much disembodiment. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the layers of this idea of the disembodiment that is happening on a bigger scale. So we're going to start it more on the surface level and go a little bit deeper so that you can start to connect some dots for yourself. So the first thing that I was really realizing, especially during the pandemic, is that a lot of us, I'm going to very much generalize, so please don't take this personally as I speak into it. I'm just generalizing, is that a lot of people were reacting. They were going into survival mode. They were going into fight or flight. Instead of when we feel safe in our body, when we feel safe in our environment, we're able to be reflective. We're able to respond in a healthy way. We are able to say, that's not the best way of saying X, Y, and Z. Maybe this person's going through a hard time. Instead, we tend to react and lash out, right? So we saw a lot of that in media and social media. And this is just a sign, and we're going to speak kind of through the lens of Western and Eastern worlds in this moment. In the Western world, this is, as I said, we're in a dysregulated nervous system. We're acting from a place of survival. So we're going into fight, flight, or freeze. This also causes a bit of emotional dysregulation. So in our limbic system, we have crazy emotions. We don't understand what's happening. And so we act out in different ways emotionally. We have anger. We don't understand how we're expressing. So we go into all of these different ways of acting out our fight, flight, or freeze. In our Eastern world, or in our Eastern lens, we look at these as imbalances in our subtle body, our chakra system, which I'll talk a bit more deeply in experience with you all on Thursday. But we have all of these imbalances. The gist of it is we're having all these imbalances and dysregulations in our physical body and our energetic body. And it's creating as remember, everything's a mirror, we're creating these dysregulations in our external worlds. We're acting from that place of survival and reacting. And so from this, there's a split. We see more duality. We have to choose a side. And I'm using an example right now as the masculine and the feminine. These energies, and I'm not talking about man and female, I'm just talking about these energies of masculine and feminine. So we have, all of a sudden, we have these ideas of, making sure that women's rights are protected or not protected, right? We have to choose blue or red in terms of Democrat or Republican. So we're having these splits. I mean, the one big conversation was vaccinated or not vaccinated. So we're creating more and more divide because we feel like we have to choose a side in order to survive. This is what we used to do back in the day in tribalism. We had to choose which tribe we were going to be a part of to align with. So all of these signs, when we're in this space of survival and duality, it creates all paths lead to imbalances and this disembodiment. And so in this deeper layer, this third layer, we talk about even just more fragmentation. So we have this split, but then it creates even more fragmentations. And there's a lot of risks there. And I am gifted that I get to hang out in lots of different groups. And so, you know, we'll have our friends in the business world, and we'll also talk to scientists. And so we'll talk more about kind of like the 3D worlds. And so what we see in the 3D worlds, when there are these fragmentations, when there's these disembodiments, we'll talk about conditioning. We'll talk about not being able to really feel what we're feeling, right? As young children, we weren't able to express ourselves at a certain point. We weren't allowed, it wasn't appropriate to express anger or sadness, right? We had to be a strong man, or we had to make sure that we weren't vulnerable as a woman and share our shame and guilt or whatever it was. So we started to hide our emotions. And so there was a conditioning there. And there's also, as you're seeing right now in our 3D world, is this disconnection from our own body that puts a power over other people's bodies, right? We see this a lot right now on, you need to do this to be in your body so that I feel safe, right? That is a sign that we don't feel safe in our own body. And so we have to have power over other people's bodies. And what we also see in these fragmentations of like the healer worlds, the 4 and 5D, or healers or spiritual leaders, we have conversations around the wounded healers. The wounded healers have gone through most likely some sort of traumatic event. And so sometimes, from the best of the intentions, they focus on taking care of people, taking care of other people in a way that isn't taking care of themselves. They aren't taking fully radical responsibility for their own body, for their own healing. And it feels better to live in these kind of 4D and 5-dimensional states of mind because we don't have to fully be in the body. And so this is an invitation for even our spiritual and healers out there to come back into the body, right? Because when we don't, there ends up being spiritual bypassing. So these are just some ideas. They're very big ideas, I know, that come from that root of this disembodiment. And so what we need to do, wherever you are in this life, if you identify as being more in the 3D world, Western world, more of that expansive realm, right, spiritual healing realm, whatever leader you fall under, it's time for all of us to take radical responsibility and become more embodied in our own selves, in our own worlds. So we have, instead of power over, power with. And so where do we go from here? I don't like to leave us all like, oh my gosh, the world is going to end. We're all disembodied. We're running around. How is this all happening? I love to give some reflections on what is possible for us and how to kind of make these shifts. And so it's just really simple. It's going back to the basics. It's going back to the basics and becoming the CEO of your life. Now, when I say the CEO, I'll break it down in just a moment. This isn't the CEO of a big organization. This isn't, you don't have to lead a global movement. This is just becoming the CEO of your life. And so what does that mean, the CEO of your life? This is first starting out in your centering. As I said, all the way back to my childhood story, is that we have to find center first. When we feel centered, When we are able to regulate our nervous system, we feel safe in the body. We feel safe in our environment. We're grounded. We shift from that survival state of being to a space of leaning in with more curiosity, with more creativity. And so we're going to hear this question that I ask all of the leaders. What are some daily centering practices you have? And so I ask you too, what are some daily centering practices you have? And feel free to share in the comments if you would like in the Zoom room or on Zoom, on YouTube. What are some of your own daily practices that you have? Because the more that we can instill those in the morning, throughout the day, in the evening, this is going to help us really truly move in that space of envisioning what we want to create and move from that place of curiosity. And then the E for our CEO, to become the CEO of your life, is our emotional awareness, right? Making friends with the emotional landscape. As I shared again in my own journey, the shamanic journey, we've got to make friends with the shadows and the light, right? When we start to understand how we feel anger, how we react to shame and guilt, we start to regulate our limbic system, right? We start to regulate our hormones. We start to understand, this is maybe a moment that triggers me, right? Coming on here, I had no idea how many people were going to be in the Zoom room, how many people were going to be on YouTube. Was it going to work? Oh my gosh, is Leah going to show up on time? Am I going to be able to have my notes all lined up? Like, I had a lot of anxiety. So what did I do is I noticed that I was going to do that. I created an environment that I would feel grounded and safe before I got on here. I put some music on. I danced. As you heard, that's a beautiful medicine for me. So you start to understand for yourself what you need in those moments where you might be triggered. You start to build what we call our emotional intelligence muscle. And we take these moments, we are able to pause, the sacred pause of shifting from reacting to being reflective and responding. Right? When we have that dropping down and feeling grounded and safe and knowing what is this energy that's going on inside of me, we're able to pause and go, right, this is my friend, anger. Hi, anger, nice to see you again, right? And we get to have a moment and pause with it and shift that energy, whether it is that we need to give it a healthy expression, right, for ourselves, or maybe with that person that needs to hear what we need to share in a grounded, safe way. Or maybe we just need to go, right, that is no longer necessary to hold on to. We can release that, right? So we start to have these moments where we can renegotiate. And then as we become more and more in touch with our own emotional awareness, we become more and more in touch with our own empathy, right? Everybody is empathetic. I love how everybody goes around saying I'm an empath. Yes, we all are empaths. It's just whether we're conscious of it or not. So we get to give ourselves permission to be more empathetic. We're able to be there for the people that we're leading. We're able to lean into those moments that they need us. So I ask you here, what do you do when you are in your emotionally charged situations? It's going to be different for each person. It's going to be different for each emotion, but start to do a little bit of reflection on this too, on what are some of the things, what are some resources you have, especially when you're in those emotionally charged situations. Again, you are going to hear these conversations with our embodied leaders throughout our time together as well. It always likes to go backwards. Okay, now open, open, safe, inclusive spaces. So when we feel at home, when we feel embodied, we're in openness with ourselves. We're able to witness ourselves. We're able to hold that space for ourselves and all of the hard stuff that's in there, right? Our shadows, our light, we're able to be with it in an open, safe, and inclusive space. And when we do that, we become more integrated, we become more balanced, we feel calmer, we feel at peace. We become the change that we want to see in this world. And then when we have that, we feel that home in our bodies, in our environments, we're able to welcome the other. Alexander John will talk a lot about welcoming the other, and Annie as well. We'll talk about welcoming the other, right? Other being anybody outside of yourself, right? You will be able to create open, safe, inclusive spaces for the people that you lead. So what is an open, safe, and inclusive space for you? That's something that we want to explore, and we will definitely explore more on Thursday, is what is an open, safe, and an inclusive space for you, and how do you create that for the people in your space? And again, as a leader, this might just be your family, your friend group, your organization, your local community, your global movement. How do you create those open, safe, inclusive spaces? So today, for those who joined us right at the end, it felt really important for us to ground. It was for me to be the leader of this conversation today. I was like, I need to land here. So we did a centering for myself, but for all of us, to close the tabs on all of the other extracurricular activities we have, and to ground ourselves and be here now, right? So when we're here fully present, we all feel included. We all feel seen. We all feel heard and seen and felt. You are the leader you've been waiting for. So if you didn't already know that, you are the one. So there's a book that I had as a child. I did not prepare to share this story, but I feel like it's necessary. I had this book as a child. It was Grover from Sesame Street. And it was all about, there's a monster at the end of this book. Does anybody know that book? I have it. If I knew I was going to tell you this story, I would hold it up here. I'll share a picture on Facebook. But it's called, there's a monster at the end of this book. And he's like, he doesn't want you to turn the pages because he's afraid of seeing the monster at the end of this book. So the book is all about him not wanting to see the monster. And then he finds out at the end, the monster's him. And here I am telling you all, you are the leader you've been waiting for. So like it or not, you are a leader, my dear friend. You are becoming the CEO of your life. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah. That's all I have to say in terms of my beautiful screen share. So I'm going to stop my screen share. I'm going to connect with faces that are here and connect a little bit with our Zoom room and our chats. So I'd like to share just to walk through a short experience, but I'm going to pause and see, Leah, if you have anything to share. I'm looking at our YouTube and I see a lot of people saying where they're from. Hi, how are you? I don't know if I see any questions, but if you have any questions or comments at YouTube, please feel free to share. And anybody here in our, I did see a couple of chats. I see some breathe and pause, movement, meditation, sometimes a good scream and a pillow. Is that you, Leah? Meditation. Yeah, so I see some people sharing some of their centering practices. Thank you for that. Yeah. Beautiful. So I would love to offer, as we close, we're not closing quite yet, but a little bit of an experience to take away with you today. So we did do a short centering at the beginning, and now I'm going to invite us into grounding down a little bit more. But I do invite us just for a moment to take a little break and stand up and shake out your body, right? Because you might have been sitting this whole time. So take a moment, do a little stretch. Take some deep breaths. Think about what were some of those centering practices that you remembered, that you called in. Good, and then we'll go ahead and come to a place of stillness. Maybe you need to drink a little bit of water. So come to a place of stillness, and let's go ahead and have a little experience here. So feel free to bring your hands onto your space or your body, whatever feels good for you. And maybe as you take these 3 breaths in and out of the body, maybe you remember your word. Maybe there's some resonance of what I shared today that reignited a spark. Stephanie talks about reigniting our sparks. Maybe there was something that ignited a spark again within you that you want to call into this space. And just take a few more breaths to feel deeply into this word or words or images. And I invite you now to bring in a leader, a teacher, a guide that has been an influence in your life. Call in this person, and it might be a person that you physically know or have known in the past. It might just be an archetype. But call in this person into your heart space that represents a leader. And remember, this leader might also have contrast. It might also have shown you what not to do as a leader. That was its way of teaching you. Trust that it all belongs. That first person you think of, bring them into your heart space for 2 more breaths. And now imagine this leader, this teacher, this guide is within you, and you can place them on one side of your heart space and kind of imagine a miniature version of you also standing in your heart space now, looking at this leader. You're looking at each other. And let's imagine now a figure 8 traced around the 2 of you. And this could be you tracing it. This could be a color light. This could be a little bit of movement in your body. We're just going to imagine this figure 8, this infinity sign, circling around the 2 of you, bringing in this person's energy towards you and back around, and you're bringing your energy into this person as well. So you start to blend each other's energies, the lessons, the experiences that you both bring. Just notice how that feels as you blend these energies together. And then come to somewhere that feels like the center of that 8, that infinity sign. Find the center point and fully pause and soak in this blending of the 2 energies right in the center point. And breathe there for a few breaths, and just let the breath be the little ripple effect that goes with this energy into the spaces of your body. So begin to embody this idea of leader. And it becomes a ripple effect beyond the perimeters of your body into the physical space that you're in. And maybe it becomes a ripple effect out beyond the physical space you're in, energetically through the waves of the technology we're using here today, maybe something else. Envision how far you want these waves of yours to go. You get to choose. Deep breath in. It all starts here with you. Deep exhale out. And maybe that intention or that word, or if you weren't here earlier, anchor yourself in a word or an image or a symbol that will remind you of the center, this new center of yours, this new promise you're making to yourself and to everyone that you lead and co-create with. Deep breaths in, deep exhales out. And then I invite you just to bring your hands around your arms and give yourself a hug and a little squeeze. So as this new, I like to think of it as a new blueprint within you is permeating every cell of your body. We're sealing it in now. We're squeezing, giving ourselves little squeezes and hugs to seal in this new vibration that you will begin to embody more and more of. You can take some deeper breaths. Maybe you eventually let the eyes flutter open and there's no rush to find the screen. Just take a moment and soak in what you see now. Once you see, you can unsee. And as I said before, it is your mission to help others see what you see. We need you to be you and to lead the way. So thank you all so very much for being here today. It's been such a joy being able to come to this space where we're kicking off our summit. If you want to share any of your experiences here, again, I'll leave a little space. In a moment, we're going to pause the YouTube. I'll give you a little thumbs up in a second, Leah, and then I'll leave it open a little bit longer for our friends in Zoom to just connect a little bit more deeply without it being out in Zoom. So just again, a little reminder, if you came in late or just want a little refresher, we will be again live together on Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be leading you with more of an experience. So if you liked that meditation, you're like, oh, yes, I want more of that. Good. You're going to receive more of that. And a little bit deeper, we're going to have a little bit of journaling, some inquiry. So we'll be able to explore more of who you are becoming as a leader and help you envision that and bring it to fruition. Again, you have access. Everybody now has access to booking a free 30-minute call, envisioning call with me. So if you're scratching your head and you're like, I don't know about this whole envisioning myself as a leader thing, let's sit down together and let's just start to dream a little bit, right? And see what we can stir up for you. And the portal is now open. I have said that many times. The portal is now opened. You have access to 3 interviews for my friends in YouTube, 4 of you in the VIP, and you will be receiving more every single day through Sunday. Is that all I need to share, Leah? Is there anything else? We're good? Okay. So we'll say goodbye to our friends in YouTube, and we'll see you all soon. Our friends in Zoom will leave a little bit of space for you to connect.